Hello, and welcome to Find a Practitioner. Today's episode, we have Scott from America. Scott's a QHHT practitioner and a author. Welcome to the show, Scott. Please tell us
Thanks,
a bit
Anthony.
more about what you do.
Well, I am a QHHT practitioner. I've been practicing since the days of COVID. Um, it's kind of a weird thing. I think a lot of us got in there's a big wave of us that joined during that time. It was kind of weird the way the the subconscious orchestrated that. But I've been practicing since then and haven't looked back. It's been wonderful.
Awesome. That's great. Um, yeah, who do you think the QHT will benefit? What sort of people? What's your client base?
It has a huge benefit for anyone. Anyone could benefit from this type of session. The reason why I say that is because all of us have day-to-day life stresses. You know, there's some people are facing anxiety, others are facing depression. Some people just want answers. Some people have chronic pain. Some people are just curious to see what a session is like. But the uniting thread for all of them is that if someone is curious about a session, there's probably a reason why. There's probably a reason why someone is being led to have a QHHT session. And so it's absolutely for everybody. Lately, I've been finding it has a tremendous benefit for the veteran community. I do a lot of work with veterans with this modality, and the sessions they have, Anthony, are amazing. And veterans maybe aren't the first type of people that one would think of when someone is mentioning QHHT. But over here in the United States, veterans, when they return from service, they're not given very much. They're given talk therapy and they're given maybe antidepressants. We call them SSRIs. And that's it. There's no discussion about, other traditional healing modalities, let alone alternative healing modalities. They get those two things. They get talk therapy and SSRIs. Well, I started working with veterans recently, and I've found that they're a tremendously open community, and they've had some amazing sessions. So for me personally, that would be a community of note that might take people by surprise, that the veterans are the ones that I find are more open to this type of session than anyone else.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, thank you for doing that work, because I guess it's helping them quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was your sort of wow moment doing this sort of work?
Gosh. So I came to this from the perspective of a complete normie. I was just a guy working in an office cube in corporate America. And then one day I picked up a book. It was a book called The Secret History of the World. This is a long story, so I'll give you the short version. But in this book, it describes the different things that the world elite teach their children that are not taught to everyone else's children in the public school system, at least here in the United States. And one of the things that are taught to the elite's children is that reincarnation is real. And Anthony, I couldn't put that down. I couldn't put that aside. I couldn't stop thinking about how that was such a different perspective than what is taught in the mainstream education system, where they don't teach reincarnation is real. In fact, they teach that matter came before mind rather than mind coming before matter. And so I began to do a deep study on that, and that led me to Dolores Cannon and QHHT. And so I guess one of my wow moments then, if I had to pick just one, because there's been so many, if I had to pick just one, the third time, my third session as an intern, the very third time I ever attempted this, the client came up out of hypnosis after the session, and he was doing this with his hand, with his right hand, the universal, give me something to write on, give me something to write with.
Yeah.
So I quickly handed him this notebook, my notebook, the one that I take notes in during sessions, right? I handed my notebook, and I'll hold this up for the camera. He proceeds to sketch this image. Can you see the little stick figure there at the table? Little sword.
Good job.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, interesting. I didn't quite knew what it meant at the time. I didn't quite know, but he did give me a bunch of historical facts during this session. The American Civil War is something that most kids learn about in school here, but he recalled being a Civil War general that was on the lesser known track. You would sort of have to be a history nerd to even know who this guy was. His name was General David Hunter. And I didn't tell the client, but after the session, I went and I was looking up facts. I found that picture, or a picture that's very close to that. I found it in the historic record. I found that the facts that this client was giving me matched up. Things like the different regions he was deployed to in that life, why he was there, and even what his horse's name was and what his wife's name was. And so all these different dates and facts started to match up very well. And I remember thinking, once I finished that research, wow, this client is not a historian. He's a gym owner. He's a personal trainer. He's not a Civil War historian at all. And for him to have that level of recall and that level of clarity come through, and this was only my third time ever attempting this, really wowed me. I knew at that point that I was in, and I was in with both feet, because I didn't have a word for that type of epiphany that I had, like, wow. So Dolores Cannon is right. These past lives are real. This was just proven to me in a way that I think mattered to me personally, because I came at this from somewhat of a skeptical angle. I have a background in research, somewhat of an academic. I have a doctorate, right? So the fact that I could go to the historic record and find these things satisfied my curiosity. And then on the other side of it, I saw how beneficial the session was for the client. I saw how well he received the information from the higher self and how well he integrated those things. It was so, as an intern, and that being the third time I ever attempted it, I knew I was going to finish my internship, and I knew I was going to keep practicing from that point forward. So that was my first wow moment, where I just knew I was in.
That sounds awesome. Some sessions do surprise you, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of detail, and it's like, didn't even know about that. They even teach some things that you hear as well. There's like, they don't even teach that in the history, because obviously they probably didn't know that much detail. It definitely surprises you. One of my clients he worked for a king long time ago. And then when after the session finished, I was like, who is this king? Because he was one of his guards. And when I looked it up, it said Greek mythology, coming from the Greek mythology. And I was like, they're trying to say Greek mythology is something that's not real. I was like, someone had a past life. I was like, how do you explain that one? It's absolutely crazy. I was like, oh,
that is super interesting. When you get back into the days of legend, I can relate. I've had one or two that have went that direction. And when you can find that it matches, at least some of it matches with our current lore, it's just like, there's a big wow factor.
Oh, definitely. It does sort of blow you away, but it's very good. How has this modality transformed your life personally?
So obviously I couldn't put it down after that third session, right? And since then, I've not only completed the internship and levels 1 and 2, but it's changed my life, because I felt like I had I had something that could benefit society. I had learned a skill that could benefit my fellow man in a way that my normie life couldn't, crunching numbers in an office cube somewhere. I felt like I felt like I had value now to provide to people. I could help them help themselves. And that was huge, because we tend to learn through our clients. When our clients have sessions, a piece of that stays with us as we go forward. And the things that we are able to learn, I sort of call it being on the front lines, whatever you want to call it. We're on the front lines of this paradigm shift that the earth is undergoing right now. And we're getting information straight from source, straight from the higher self. And there's nowhere I'd rather be than doing this type of work. So I guess it changed my life in that it really gave me a purpose. As I mentioned, the work with veterans, I wouldn't have had an opportunity to do that had I gone down a different route. So uh, speaking just for me, Anthony, it really gave me purpose that I hadn't had before.
Okay, that's awesome. And how can you tell us a bit more about your journey and how you found QHHT? And
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I read a book called The Secret History of the World by Mark Booth. And in that book, they mentioned the elite teach their kids that reincarnation is real and that mind came before matter, which are two things that are not taught in the public school system in the United States. You learn that you only have one life, and you learn that matter existed first before mind, and that we came from some kind of primordial soup. At least that was in the 1990s in the United States. That's what they were teaching, and I could very quickly understand the process on how these two worlds would diverge. How the elites were able to sort of get a corner on the knowledge. They were able to corner the esoteric knowledge that keeps them in power. And so reading that first book, Secret History of the World, really unlocked my mind. Then I started reading Dolores Cannon, the Convoluted Universe series. And the things that I was reading about in the Secret History of the World and the things that Dolores was talking about in Convoluted Universe matched up. I just kept on being curious. I was deciding for myself, is this something I'm going to pursue or not? And then I got to that third session that I told you about, which is with the Civil War general. That's been my story. I've never looked back since. I take as many sessions as people will book with me, and I really feel that this type of work is amongst the most purposeful that we could be doing at this point in time. So that's been my journey. I've just never looked back. I'll
awesome.
just leave it at that.
And you said you wrote a book. Please, can you tell us a bit more about your book, please?
The book is called Quantum Intern Year One. You know, when when I wrote this book, at the time, as a level 1 practitioner, we had to do an internship of 25 sessions, right? And this was your learning phase. This is where, you're supposed to practice on friends, family, or whoever. And during my internship, as I mentioned to you in the pre-interview, I was getting all these different Dolores Cannon style convoluted sessions where people wouldn't just go to a past life necessarily. They'd go to a different dimension or a different planet entirely. And they had these incredible experiences. And so this book, Quantum Intern, is twofold an homage to Dolores Cannon's writing style. So it's written in the same way that Dolores would phrase her books, where it's you see the pieces of the dialogue and the transcript going through, and then you see my reflections on it. And then I go an extra step and I add in the historical evidence that I found or didn't find for each session. And so, for the skeptics, I put that in there for them because so much information that came through, especially in these internship sessions, a lot of it was verifiable, readily verifiable. Even to my surprise, just to tease, I had one session go off world to Mars, and I thought, well, there's probably nothing to look up because this is on a different planet entirely. Come to find out, the American CIA, they declassified something called Project Stargate, where under hypnosis, or I guess they would call it remote viewing, under remote viewing, they described the same thing that my client was describing under hypnosis, right? So
Wait, oh my
yeah,
word. As
so it's in the book, but the Project Stargate was describing Martian-wide global environmental catastrophe and a society trying to sort of pick itself up from the ashes. And that's exactly what my client had described. And then I started looking at the astrological markers because she had mentioned that there was a statue of a bull outside one of the temples. It's called an Apis bull. And I was able to corroborate that with the last age of the bull and put a projected timeline on when this life might have happened, how many thousands of years ago this might have happened when the bull constellation was at that point in the sky. So it's a really interesting trek through, again, someone who is a complete normie, going through an internship and just being forever changed by it. And so that's Quantum Intern. That's for someone who's considering either becoming a practitioner themselves, or someone who's just a fan of the material and they want to read about very interesting sessions, or someone who's a skeptic and says, if any of this is true, there should be a record of it. I'll show you this. I include a full bibliography that's like 4 or 5 pages long. Here's the bibliography, and here's all the works cited, right? This goes for multiple pages. I bring the receipts, and it was a very humbling experience to write this, because I sort of felt like I was filling a spot in amongst the books that are out there where I'm not a perfect practitioner, and I certainly was not in my internship. I definitely made mistakes, I think, as we all do, especially during our internship days. And despite all the mistakes, which I document, I call out what I did wrong in these sessions, and I explain why it was wrong. But despite all those mistakes as a newbie, these clients had amazing sessions, which is a testament to Dolores Cannon's technique and how forgiving it is.
Yeah, it's definitely. I haven't come nothing across it, before I got into it. I went and experienced it for myself, and I was just sort of blown away. What I've experienced is like, wow, it's just, you can't explain it, but Dolores did a tremendous job in writing that script and bringing that to everybody. I can't describe. What advice would you give for new starters who are looking to go down that road?
Just keep going. You'll have some sessions that are better than others, and you'll have an impact on your clients. But as long as you keep an open mind and open heart, and you keep moving one foot in front of the other, you'll find that it's all worth it. I know there were times during my internship where I wondered, is this something I could even do? Because I seem to be making mistakes or doing things in the wrong order, or, is this for me? But I just kept moving forward. And that would be my advice to anyone considering engaging with the practice. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Make it through your internship. Just keep going. There's no rush, right? You can take as long as you want to take, but always make progress, right? That would be my advice.
Cool. Awesome. That's very lovely. How can, who are interested in QHHT, how can they find you and contact you?
My website is matrix-hypnosis.com, and you can find me there. You can follow my work there. You can contact me there. That would be the best place to keep track of what I'm doing. And if you want to support the book, you can buy it on Amazon, Quantum Intern Year 1. It's where if you want to read stories about someone who wasn't doing this in the best way that a veteran practitioner would, and you're considering, geez, I don't know if I can do this. Well, trust me, if you start seeing some of the mistakes I was making, you'll feel better about trying it yourself.
Awesome. I'll put all the details in the description box below for the book and your contact information, so that whoever's interested can reach you, can reach out to you. Thank you very much for today, Scott.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Anthony.
No worries. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. Much love. Thanks.